So I'd like to start by welcoming everybody on this lovely sunny Wednesday afternoon to our series of Design Insider webinars. So as I know you all know, Design Insider is an online magazine which brings the latest news and trends from the contract furnishing sector. And we're actually connected to the BCFA, which is the British Contract Furnishings Association, who facilitate opportunities for our members, including providing knowledge, skills development and inspiration. Now, we started this series of webinars on the 1st of April, very shortly after everybody went into lockdown. And we invited Claire Menzies to be our first guest. The conversation was fantastic, and you can actually find that conversation on Design Insider. Just search for Claire's name and it will come up and you'll be able to watch that first webinar. But we really felt that there was much more that Claire could have talked to us about. So we invited her back here a month later to talk to us in a little bit more detail, which is what we're going to do today. So Claire Menzies is the founder and chairwoman of Istoria Group, which is actually a collective of 3 established sister agencies, along with 2 innovative startups. She is a proven entrepreneur, sustainability champion, which you will hear much more about shortly, and absolutely passionate advocate of the triple-pronged people, planet, profit business vision. So we'll welcome Claire here today. Hi, Claire.
Hi, Alice. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Welcome back.
Thanks for inviting me.
Oh, absolutely. Our pleasure. So if we start our conversation today, I hear that congratulations are in order and that you've had some fantastic company news since we spoke last month.
We have really great news. On the 21st of April, the largest company in Istoria Group, Ignition specialises in events, exhibitions and experience, received the Queen's Award for Enterprise in Sustainable Development. And Ignition is only one of 19 companies to be awarded this particular category for sustainable development. It's an enormous accolade. We're so proud. It's a wonderful thing.
Absolutely. It's huge congratulations. So what does it really mean to win a prestigious award like that during this period of crisis?
Yeah, well, it's been a real boost for morale, I have to say, for all employees and for our clients too, who are delighted that we've been awarded this, and also for our partners and our supply chain. It really adds a level of confidence to everything we believe in. You know, our business was founded a year before the 2008 financial crisis, and we survived that. And since then, we've worked so hard to build up resilience in our business. It's really serving us well. So I think that's the first thing. Our mission, you know, has always been about people, planet, and prosperity. And I think sustainability isn't just about being green. And this has really proven it. It's about being blue and hopeful, you know, so it incorporates everything, all aspects of our needs, social, cultural, financial, and environmental. And I think that's important. And that goes with us in our relationships with our customers. So for us, this means that we offer a whole suite of sustainable business practices. And one of the things that we do is we work with like-minded clients. That's so important for us. And we always look at long-term contracts. We feel that's very important for many reasons. This means, and particularly for Ignition, they have a long view to the projects, multiple projects throughout a year on year. And also it allows us to work on a continuous improvement plan with our clients on both sides of the contract, by the way. So both us improving and them. All that feeds into their corporate social responsibility policy too. So that really adds value. So being able to see the long view is so important. And also for us, it means that we can then work continuously throughout the term of our contract and work on renewing it. So we're not looking for the expiration date. we're actually looking from a sustainable perspective for the rollover time. So the point at which we decide there's another journey to take with our client, which includes another long-standing contract. And I think these shared values and the built-up resilience that we create enables us and has enabled us to survive the crisis of 2008 and to work through this one.
And so, do you think that that increased focus on sustainability will be one of the real positives to come out of the crisis for businesses in general?
Yes, I do, definitely. You know, I think in many ways, at the forefront of our minds at this time must be the environment and also wastefulness. I'm sure all of us have thought about this during lockdown. And I think that we're living under constraints, and this is forcing us to really rethink our habits. At least I hope it is. I really hope it is. When it comes to sustainability, the business environment that we will probably see when we emerge from this is going to be very, very different, I believe, to what we've known before. And let's remember that we're going to come out in layers. So across industry, this is going to apply to different industry sectors at different points. It may be a year, 2, 3, 4 years. We just don't know. So I think recognizing that we got some habits that need to change, this is a perfect opportunity for us to take stock and start to think about moving from our current economy model, which is linear, into a more sustainable circular economy. I think that's vital.
So what does that transition really look like, and what does it entail from linear into circular?
Well, a traditional linear economy is a sort of take, make, waste model of production. And if you think about it, this is an out-of-date model, really, because it emerged as a result of the Industrial Revolution. And I think it's had its day. And basically what we do is we pull things out of the ground, raw materials, or we find resources, we turn them into products, and then we consume them. And we often do that very quickly, you know, sometimes seconds, if you think about sweets or whatever, food, and then sometimes it's hours, days, weeks. And sometimes it may be a few years, but in general, what we produce, what we can't reuse and what isn't recycled goes back into the ground, back into landfill or into the oceans. And that's really damaging behavior. It's very short-sighted, it's wasteful, and worse, it's really terrible for the planet. And the circular economy model allows us to reimagine and redesign our world collectively. It's so important. Imagine an economic system aimed at eliminating waste and focused on the continual use, really the continual use of our resources in the economy. And think of a time when today's products, the things we're using today, could be remanufactured or repurposed or reused and become tomorrow's products. That's sort of utopia. And it means that these things will not end up in a landfill or in the ocean. And it's so important that we focus on this. I really believe that. I think that hopefully, you know, a lot of us use recycled materials at work and in our personal lives, in households. But I think designers are very open to this and are used to using materials and substrates that have good provenance. But I think there's still far too many businesses and individuals that are working in isolation, in siloed situations, where they're having to take on responsibility for the way they design things and the materials that they're using. And moreover, I think there's not enough legislation in place by any means to ensure that we all take full responsibility for what happens to the products that we dispose of. It's extraordinary that we don't, but it's time that we do. And I think we can do this together. You know, the circular economy really needs joint efforts by government, and I implore government to really get more involved than they are doing, and lawmakers too, and researchers, industry, businesses, consumers. You know, we can all start to demand better. And I think also entrepreneurs, because we're going to have to innovate ourselves into this new world. And I think we can do that. I think a crisis like this makes us all look again at sort of the principle and just understand that everything is interconnected, and that often, you know, everything involves a chain reaction, even a virus.
Yes. Another, so beyond that increased sustainability, what other major changes do you think we'll see in the post-COVID-19 world?
I think we're seeing it now. So I would say, to start off, that we're going to see an escalation in any trends that we knew about pre-COVID. So whatever trajectory those trends were on, I think we're going to fast forward as we come out of this. One thing that sticks out to me is I think we're going to see a major change in global supply chains. Without question, I think this time has really exposed how fragile and how risky global supply chains are. And it's really highlighted our overdependence and our attitude towards using and finding the cheapest solutions to things, and our reliance on acquiring things from anywhere in the world so rapidly at any time. We've really got to change those habits. We've seen how bad a habit of convenience is in an inconvenient world. That's what we're living in at the moment. The contemporary philosopher John Gray once said that global problems do not always have global solutions. And I really do believe that, Alice. I think that we'll probably see, once the virus is under control, a major reaction to deglobalization. And I think that we may focus more on self-reliance and robustness at every level of our business and in our personal lives. And I actually think that we're living it a little bit right now. I do. I think we're going to see everything from planting our own food where possible. That's definitely happening. You can't buy lettuce online, seeds anywhere. I think shopping locally is really something that's going to happen in the future. Increased self-sufficiency in supply chains, and I think that's going to happen at a local level as we emerge, and regionally, and then nationally, and then at continental levels sooner than at international level. I think we also need to reevaluate in this question how we measure success. It's fairly obvious, given the kind of out-of-date linear economy model, that GDP alone really doesn't measure what we value most anymore. It just doesn't. And I think there's been a lot of fear and there's been a lot of anxiety that's been sort of generated by this crisis, but what we're seeing is this extraordinary community mindedness, this extraordinary generosity and bravery of people, and an incredible amount of creativity. It's remarkable to see. I think possibly it's time for us to be brave and bold about the solutions and highlight what true value really is. And I think that's probably a place where whatever we produce creates multiple levels of positivity and prosperity over just profit in the sort of traditional sense. I think vulnerable international food chains is something that is an interesting thing right now. I think that's probably something we could look at that could be replaced by sustainable, regenerative local food supply. That would be wonderful. And I think that in that could sort of in turn produce these marvelous positive virtue circles that somehow work alongside that to help maybe decrease obesity, less fast food, less processed food, and more emphasis on eating together and cooking food that we know is from a local source, that we recognize and feel part of. I think that's really important. And potentially employment, because locally, maybe it's going to be it will be less cost prohibitive for people that live in local communities to work together, because they'll be able to do so. That would be a wonderful thing. So in the big picture, I think it's really time that we sort of look at the fact that we need to stop insisting that people and the planet fit around this reductionist behavior and this sort of high profit attitude that we have, and that we look at being more balanced between prosperity and profitability and wrap that around people and the planet. I think that's really important, because whatever business you're in right now, my feeling is that it's never been a more important time to make sure that you're a values-led organization.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that that is really what the future needs. I think the future will insist upon it in one way or another.
Actually, we've had quite an interesting question come in that just asks a little bit, sort of pushes that point that you've just made about companies that have robust sustainability practices or initiatives. Why do you think that often they don't include their trade show and event programs within those initiatives?
I think historically, potentially, trade shows have been a point of bad practice and wasteful behavior, and that's something that we're really seeking to change. And I think that perhaps education in terms of the marketing teams for these businesses means that you can understand that there is an accreditation, ISO 2012-1, which is a sustainable events accreditation that allows you to attend these things with more consideration. Mm. So I think that's probably something that is an educational piece that requires an awful lot more thought, I hope, for the future.
Yes, and something like you were saying, that people are really going to have to take all of these aspects into consideration moving forward.
I think in trade shows and in events, there's definitely a split we're seeing right now between virtual events and real-time face-to-face activity. I think we mustn't forget that we're human and tribal, and that face-to-face connection will never, virtual will never take the place of that. I think it's important that we recognise it, how we do it, and how we find local partners that can help us deliver those projects on a global basis is going to be an interesting thing, but it's an important part of any strategy, I think.
Absolutely. So innovation really is just has to be key to the business world we'll emerge into, right?
I think so. I think innovation and human ingenuity are key, aren't they? We are ingenious creatures, let's face it. And sadly, things like war oftentimes lead us to the birth of new innovations because of the challenges of the new needs that arise from those things. So I think it's fair to say that we're not extinct, so we're going to do everything we can to innovate ourselves into a positive place, and hopefully this time will allow us to think about that in a more sustainable manner. But I think one thing, Alice, that we should sort of recognise is that some businesses are stuck right now in some very difficult corners. There's no question. Some businesses have failed, and businesses will go on and fail. And that's really unfortunate. But for most of us, I think there is a silver lining. I think that there is plenty of hope, and there's plenty of scope, and plenty of scope for new business vision. I think that's going to be a big focus as we re-emerge and all move forward, definitely. I also think that in the past, we've had this mindset where we all use words like lean and mean and agile, and as we zip around the universe, in every nanosecond counts. And, we've all sort of had to calm down a little bit. And I think that those words, that mindset, that intention could be replaced with consideration, with a more resilient attitude, and non-fragile. Businesses will really need to emerge intentionally and sustainably when this lockdown lifts, and they're going to have a clearer idea of what they're about and what their purpose is, clearer than ever before, I think. I think time away from sort of the hustle of how we were living pre-lockdown has revealed to all of us, business leaders, consumers alike, that we've stopped to think, what's essential? I know I have. What is essential? What's wasteful? What is unnecessary as you hover over the buy button, Do I need this? What luxuries or treats, if you like, can't we do without when we emerge? What do those things look like? What will they look like? So I think a time of increased clarity lies ahead for us in all these things.
So taking that advice, what can businesses do on a practical level to start that preparation?
Yeah, well, I think we're starting to emerge, and so this time is really important. Be informed, first of all. There is no excuse not to be informed. And I think to be informed about financial situations, furloughing, staff retention, there's plenty of sites out there. Cash flow, forecasting, business plans, whatever it is that you need, there is information available. So there is no excuse not to be informed. But if you are struggling to find clarity, then I would recommend a website called Be the Business. And Be the Business is a website. It's a not-for-profit business advisory site for SMEs. It really offers clear guidance and clear information, and I would really recommend that. Be the Business. I also think now's the time to look beyond practicalities at your long-term vision. We have got a little bit of time on our hands, and I think if you can probably dedicate 10 to 20% of your time on a weekly basis over the next few months and really sort of, focus and explore where you want your organization to be when this crisis is over. I think that's going to be very, very important for us. I think that whatever that is, this needs to be consistent with the long-term view too. But don't forget, we're all going through extreme change right now, and things are happening on a fairly rapid basis, week in, week out. So I think you need to clarify what your guiding principle is. Sort of what's your point of reference, your North Star, and that is something that's needed so you can focus and sort of shape your thinking as you navigate this sort of choppy water. And this is for the short and the medium term. Again, this is essential because, as I say, things are changing so rapidly. Also, at this moment in time, it's very important to consider threats and opportunities. It's really important. And I think it's important to determine what elements of the portfolio or your client base are no longer relevant. Is there a way that any of the business that you have could be sold on? If that's possible, then that is a positive thing. If not, it's time to discard it, shut it down, and really shift your focus and your energy onto identifying opportunity. This will accelerate new growth offerings. It's vital that we all do this. We need to clear the decks and really focus on that. And we have to be realistic in determining what's likely to change about our clients, because they're going through all these things too. And we need to ask them what they think, to be bold and brave about this. Ask them what they're planning to do. What we don't want to happen is to end up finding out that they have changed their plans and we've been left behind. So it's really important to ask that. Apply the same approach to markets and operating environments that you're in. Get the information that you require. I think another point to recognise too, equally, is to determine what isn't going to change, what's constant and what's going to stay the same. So really, really determine that. What's changing, what's going to remain the same, and make sure that you have the right balance going forward. I also think, and finally on this about practical things, is we mustn't forget to look outwards, because our clients' needs will really determine our own path to a large degree, let's face it. And I think what we really need to focus on is what they're going to require after all this is over, and how we're going to meet those demands, ever-evolving demands, no doubt, as they go through all the same sorts of changings. And this is going to have to happen through sort of continued resonance of the way we design products, manufacture them, the services we offer, and finally, I'd say our overall capabilities. So that's the practical advice I would offer.
So if you were going to, to take, for example, that finding the North Star focus, is there any sort of technique or or method in which a brand, a business that perhaps thought that they knew where they were going, and this is really shaking everything up, how might they go about doing that?
It's a really difficult one, isn't it?
Sorry.
No, it's perfectly fine to ask it, and it's a good one to ask. I think the whole idea of dedicating this time to really determining what you need to be when you come out of this is the thing that's going to help to guide you towards the principles that will take you forward. So, as with all things, research, connecting with like-minded people in your industry to understand more about the trends and the changes that are happening is vital. Now's not the time to be precious about holding information back, but to really be open and to share knowledge, leverage information from other people. So I'd say that medium-term piece is really down to you spending time, dedicating time that you have now to address the changes that are coming and really decide what your principles need to be. That's my advice.
And presumably your existing team would play a role in that research.
Always. It's interesting, in a time of crisis, people always say we look straight to the CEO or to the chair, but actually I believe it's the opposite. You work with everyone involved in your organization to come up and innovate with new ideas and opportunities. Ask everyone capable, that's why they're working with you, to work with you to find new ways to manage such change. It's vitally important. Everyone, good ideas, Alice, at the end of the day.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I was just thinking that some teams will be quite fractured at the moment, especially if parts of teams are furloughed.
Yes.
That there must be quite an unusual dynamic between teams, and when you're trying to really put this thought process in place, it's actually quite a difficult time to do that with your team, potentially.
I think it is to a degree. So you've got people that are furloughed that are just waiting for all this to be over, and then you've got the sort of backstop team that are essential at this point in time, who are working towards the new future for your business. And I think that those people will be working possibly much harder to make change happen. So that is an interesting dynamic. I think that in principle, within Istoria Group, what we've done is just collectively have COVID resilience meetings to build up this resilience that we need to really talk about the changing needs of our clients, the principles of the things that we recognize are somewhat redundant within our own business model, if in fact there are any, and really work together to come up with solutions collectively with the individuals that are still working within the business. That's very, very important. In any case, it's really good practice outside a crisis to have those conversations on a regular basis and not to be too complacent and think that you know everything is sorted. I think these white swan moments, which is that you look at essential chinks in the chain as opportunity, as opposed to it being the end of the world. So yeah, fractured but considered and principled and determined to make the right decisions.
I think that's fantastic. I know there is definitely very specific things that I could leave this conversation to go and start doing. So hopefully the people that are here with us today listening will also, they'll have been able to take that away from what you've said and really work on that immediately.
Thank you. And thank you to everyone that has dialed in today to listen. It's most appreciated.
We're so grateful for you returning to the series. Our next webinar will next Wednesday at 3 p.m, which is the 13th of May, will look at branding and the concept of branding throughout this period of time. We'll be publishing up-to-date information on that and the key link to be able to register on our LinkedIn account over the coming days. So if people that are listening that don't already follow us, it's BCFA/Design Insider over on LinkedIn. And just in one moment, I will be putting up a screen of information that just enables everybody to have the contact details if they want to get in touch with Design Side or with myself, but also for Claire's contact details, and so you can find out a little bit more about Istoria Group. So
Wonderful.
I really hope everybody enjoys the rest of the sunshine and the rest of the week, and that we see you for the next webinar in our series next Wednesday. Thank you so much. Bye,
Thanks.
Claire.
Stay safe.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.